David, the shepherd boy who became king. Hello, my friend, and welcome back. This is the first story of the great King David. Enjoy it as we journey through the life of David. Tonight, we travel to a quiet hillside in the land of Israel, to a time of kings and prophets, of sheep and stars, of a boy no one noticed except God. So, take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now let's begin. Long ago, when the land of Israel was still young, the people wanted a king. They wanted someone tall and strong, someone who looked powerful, someone who could lead them into battle and make them feel safe. And so God gave them a king named Saul. At first, Saul stood proud and strong. He was taller than everyone else, and when he walked, people whispered, "There goes the king." But over time, something began to change. Saul stopped listening to God. He began trusting his own strength instead of God's wisdom. And little by little, his heart drifted away. God saw this, and it made him sad. Because, you see, God does not look at how someone appears on the outside. God looks deep inside, at the heart. He cares more about your thoughts, beliefs, and actions than he does your outward appearance. He looks at kindness, gentleness, and faithfulness much more than he looks at beauty or physical strength. So, when Saul turned his heart away from God, it was time to choose a new king. Someone after God's own heart, not a warrior, not a prince, not someone living in a palace. No, God chose a boy. Instead of a tall, proud man like Saul, God chose a boy to take his place as king. Far away from the king's court, in the small town of Bethlehem, lived a man named Jesse. Jesse was an ordinary man with an ordinary life. He had many sons, strong sons, hard-working sons, sons who helped in the fields and trained for battle. But Jesse also had another son. He was the youngest, and his name was David. While his older brothers went off to do great things, David stayed behind to care for the sheep. But David didn't mind. Out under the stars, he would play his harp and sing songs to God. The hills echoed with his music as he sang. But before we meet David, we must meet someone else, a prophet. In those days, God often spoke through special messengers called prophets. A prophet was not a magician, not a fortune teller, not someone who guessed the future. A prophet was someone God chose to hear his voice and to speak his words. When a prophet spoke, people listened because they knew God was speaking to them. One of the greatest prophets in Israel was Samuel. Samuel had known God since he was a child. He had learned to listen when God called. And now God spoke to Samuel once more. "Samuel," God said, "fill your horn with oil and go. I am sending you to Jesse of Bethlehem. I have chosen one of his sons to be king." Samuel felt nervous. The current king, Saul, was still alive, and Saul did not like rivals. If Saul found out, Samuel could be in great danger. But God reassured him. "I will show you what to do," God said. So Samuel packed his things and set out for Bethlehem. When he arrived, the elders of the town trembled. "Do you come in peace?" they asked. "Yes," Samuel replied. "I have come to offer a sacrifice to the Lord. Consecrate yourselves and come with me." Samuel invited Jesse and his sons to join him. Jesse felt proud. His sons washed and prepared themselves. They stood tall and strong as they lined up before the prophet. One by one, they passed before Samuel. The first son stepped forward. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and confident. Samuel thought to himself, "Surely this is the one the Lord has chosen." But God whispered to Samuel's heart, "Do not consider his appearance or his height. I have not chosen him. People look at the outside, but the Lord looks at the heart." So Samuel paused. Then the next son came forward, and the next, and the next. Strong hands, serious faces, warriors' postures. But each time God said, "No, not this one." 7 sons stood before Samuel. 7 times God said, "No." Samuel turned to Jesse, puzzled. "Are these all the sons you have?" he asked. Jesse hesitated. "Well," he said slowly, "there is still the youngest, but he is tending the sheep." The sheep? The dusty hills, the lonely fields. This was the job given to the smallest, the youngest, the least important. Samuel's eyes lifted. "Send for him," he said. "We will not sit down until he arrives." So someone ran to the fields, and there, among the sheep, was David. David smelled of grass and wool. His clothes were simple, and hands were rough from work, but his eyes were bright and alive. He had spent long days watching sheep, long nights under the stars, singing songs to God and talking to him in the quiet pastures. When David entered the room, everything changed. God spoke clearly to Samuel, "Rise and anoint him. This is the one." Samuel took the horn of oil and poured it over David's head. The oil ran down his hair and onto his clothes, and in that moment, though no crown rested on his head, though no one bowed before him, and though he would return to the sheep afterward, God's Spirit came powerfully upon David. From that day on, God was with him. That starry night, long ago, David did not fully understand what had happened. He did not march into a palace. He did not become king overnight. He went back to the fields, back to the sheep, back to the quiet, because he was not ready yet. It was not his time yet. However, something had changed. God had seen him. God had chosen him. God had called him. Not because he was strong, not because he was important, but because his heart belonged to God. And that is how the story of David begins. Not with a giant, not with a battle, but with a whisper from God and a boy who was ready to listen. And now you know the true story. Next time we will look more into the life of David, how he slayed giants and fought off lions. Remember, God is with you as he was with King David. Until we meet again, rest in the presence of God.